created in a democrat lab to destroy Satan's prosperous evil economy. But I thought a lot of things over the years. Apes being sexually attractive, for one.
Hello, and welcome to the Kongversation. I'm Hyle Russell.
And I'm Jeff Onan.
And this is a Donkey Kong episode of the Kongversation. I know those are rare. We don't often have episodes focused on Donkey Kong, but we're doing it this time because it was the 25th anniversary of Donkey Kong Land the other week. And so, granted, we're going to be hitting these 25th anniversaries about 2 times a year. Is Donkey Kong Country 2's 25th anniversary is coming up this November/December. But hey, guess what? It's also Banjo-Tooie's 20th anniversary and Donkey Kong Country Game Boy Color's 20th anniversary. And then, anniversaries.
I hate this.
Yeah, I do. Because,
by the time you get through the Land trilogy, it'll almost be time to do the first Land game again for the 30th anniversary.
For the 30th anniversary, right. So, I know anniversaries are silly. I know that, it's the 20th. This is the big one. No, wait, 25's bigger. Whoa, 30's bigger. Yeah, they all get bigger. But we already did the Spotlight episode for Donkey Kong Land back on its 20th anniversary, back in Season 3. So this is not a Spotlight episode. The lineage of episodes, Conversation episodes, why blank still matters, focuses more on the legacy of that game, the impact it's had, why it still resonates today. Donkey Kong Land is an interesting case, and we'll get into all of this here, but I feel like Donkey Kong Land is both a game that has been forgotten by the larger gaming blob of folk, the mashed up masses who make up gaming in general, because, Donkey Kong Country games have not been forgotten, but they have been more readily accessible in different forms or fashions since they came out, while Donkey Kong Land, despite an occasional appearance here or there on the Virtual Console, they really haven't. And because Game Boy games, original Game Boy games, are kind of an artifact themselves, they really don't have any relevance in the modern world of gaming, like a handheld game that's kind of like its console counterpart, but, lesser, scaled back, monochromatic. Yeah, it has no real analog in the modern day, except maybe mobile games, but even then, it's kind of comparing...
Yeah, but nobody's going to revisit those mobile games in 25 years.
Oh, they won't. Yeah, because you can't play them. At least they can still play Donkey Kong Land. But so anyway, yeah, it's interesting that Donkey Kong Land has been forgotten in some respects, but on the fandom, and I would argue on the developers, it has had an outsized influence, even more so than certain Donkey Kong console games. It has had a weird impact on the DKU, so we'll be getting into all of that. But first, check out DK Vine on Patreon. Yes, that's right. It's due diligence time. DKVine.com/Patreon. Check it out. You get rewards. You get to listen to this nonsense live as we record. You get the Conversation a day early. You get video content a day early that hasn't already been streamed. I'm not gonna hold our Streamaganza archives a day early for everyone because you've already seen them. So anyway, but the point is, you get rewards and you help out DK Vine. We are a small business. So we get by just right now on the generous contributions of our patrons.
You get stickers and a badass Christmas card every year with original art by Cameron Regal. They're all great.
That's right. Actually, I think there was really just a good ass on the last Christmas card. It was Donkey Kong's because he was laying on the floor there.
I remember that. Yeah.
Not a bad ass, a great ass. So check it out, dkvine.com/Patreon, or you can just go to patreon.com, find us there. I do want to point out once again, Jeff, because I was rummaging through my desk drawers because I was looking for my tax information because I still haven't done my taxes because they extended it. I didn't have to do them until July 15th.
I did them in February, like an adult man.
I am a little baby boy. Okay, Jeff? I don't do adult things. I eschew them. I say, no, I don't want to do my taxes. Me baby. So...
And a baby who has the word eschew in their vocabulary. I love this baby.
I'm a baby who... They left Frasier on the TV, and I was just left to watch it, and I was like, whatever. Speaking of which, I got vegan caviar. I ordered some. So I'm gonna have a caviar party. Like Frasier. So anyway, I was thinking through my desk drawers, Jeff, and I found all these prizes that I'm holding on to. I found my tax information, by the way, so I can do my taxes. But I found, I found all these prizes that I'm holding for all of these various nonsense contests, such as,
Hyle, tell me more.
Okay. There's a missing episode of the Kongversation that people have not heard. And this missing episode, it's not like missing episodes for things today where they're pulled because of instances of blackface. It's far more innocent than that. This is a missing episode that I purposely made missing. We recorded it with the knowledge that people would have to find it. And the clues are strewn about season 6 of the Kongversation. We're currently in season 8, right? So any episode of the Kongversation that starts with a 6 blank, like 601, 602, 603, all of those episodes contain the roadmap, the treasure map to the missing episode. If you find the missing episode and you're the first to find it, at us with its location on Twitter at dkvine.com/Twitter or twitter.com/dkvine. If you can prove you have found it, then you will get an autographed copy of Sea of Thieves #1, the comic book, autographed by the author Jeremy Whiteley. So that's in my desk drawer. Also, the first person to find all of the James Bond titles name dropped in every single episode of season 7 of the Kongversation. That's every episode that starts with a 7, 701, 702. The first person, there's one in every episode, by the way. One. I specifically name drop, just in the middle of conversation, I'll just say, hey, Goldfinger. You know, stuff like that. So if you can find them, write them in the order that I name drop them throughout the season. There's one each. I name drop movies, novels, short stories. What is excluded from this, though, are video games. So every time one of us mentions GoldenEye and it's referencing the video game GoldenEye, like, hey, Rare sure did make a video game called GoldenEye. Am I right? That doesn't count because we have to draw the line somewhere. But anyway, first person to do this, and I don't know, add us on Twitter, just let me know somehow. You get a Pierce Brosnan Funko Pop that's in my desk drawer, still in its box for all you box hounds out there. And you also get your choice of Sea of Thieves or Ukulele in the Impossible Lair. So, yeah, this is a great contest. It's actually easier than the season 6, and you get higher yield of rewards. But nobody's done it. Nobody's done it either. Got all this stuff in my desk drawer. Nobody's done it.
And nobody has done the season 8 contest because it was time to quit them because y'all aren't solving it. So if you want more contests, you gotta solve what you got. Like, you can't have any pudding. How can you have any pudding if you haven't had your meat, etc.? Solve the contest. Say, come on, people.
Right. You know, there are children starved for contest in China. So finish what's on your plate. I know I pointed this out before somewhere, but it's weird that like the go-to for starving people whenever your parents would like make you finish your plate was China. Like, what do you mean they're starving people?
No, for me it was Africa. My parents would say there's starving kids in Africa.
Well,
which I think makes more sense.
Everywhere. Like
the starving kids in Michigan. Like,
Yeah, they're like starving kids.
And the
three
trick is, if
houses
I
down.
don't like my fucking peas, me eating them or not eating them isn't going to feed a kid. It's not going to feed some stranger kid. If there's a starving kid out there who would love to have my peas, hook me up and he can have them. I don't want peas.
Yeah, that was my argument. I was like, look, let's take the canned food. Let's take them to a food drive if you're really that concerned, and that would shut them up because they didn't want to make that drive. They didn't want to do the work. Their threats were just empty air. Anyway, so contest. Check them out. All right, Jeff. I was talking about my childhood, so I'm gonna keep talking about my childhood. If you'll bear with me,
I will.
All right. So it was June 1995, and I had just finished elementary school and middle school. Those awful middle school years lay before me, but I didn't want to worry about that, right? Because I had the entire summer laid out in front of me, and I didn't see any reason to obsess or stress myself out with what was to come, because June 1995 would see the next installment of a franchise that was still relatively new. Hadn't been that many entries, but it was one that I was already a pretty diehard fan of. And yes, this new entry was being helmed by a different creative team, and it was going to be a little bit weirder than what had come before. But, you know, being a kid of something like 11 or 12, I think that perfectly suited my sensibilities. I remember going on a family trip that June to visit relatives in Pennsylvania. This is really the extent of our family vacations when I was a kid, was visiting relatives in Pennsylvania. But we went the weekend before it was released, and it was all I could think about. I was daydreaming about it. I was imagining what it was going to be like. I was consuming all media about it that I could. And I'm of course talking about Batman Forever, the third installment of Warner Brothers Batman movie series. This one was being helmed by Joel Schumacher instead of Tim Burton, and of course Val Kilmer was taking over for Michael Keaton. So it was a bit different, but I mean, oh my God, Jim Carrey was going to be the Riddler, Jeff. Jim Carrey, like that was a big get. I didn't know who Jack Nicholson was before he became the Joker, but kids sure as hell knew who Jim Carrey was in 1995. And I remember on that trip, stopping at every McDonald's to try to get the Riddler collector's glass. Like back in the 90s and before that, like 80s and 70s even, fast food restaurants would have these collector's glasses where, I
still have my Riddler glass.
You still have your Riddler glass. You know what I'm talking about then. Okay.
I know what you're talking about. I mean, I have the Riddler glass. Yeah.
These were pretty sweet. Like considering they're from McDonald's, like, you think McDonald's quality, you would think, oh, they're going to give you a styrofoam cup with a question mark on it. But no, these were actually like sculpted glass. This one had like the Riddler's cane as the handle. And, they had one for the four major characters. They had one for Batman, Robin, and Two-Face. Two-Face's was his, like, a series of coins forming the handle. Really cool. But, we had to stop at McDonald's because I had to get all those glasses, and the Riddler was the one that was up, I think, that week. And every time Seal's Kiss from a Rose was on the radio, because my parents would all, this was before a satellite radio, so my parents were constantly adjusting the radio in the car to try to get a new station. And then I would hear the ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba-ba. Don't want YouTube to pull this, so that's all I can do. And because it's spot on to Seal. But every time I would hear that, I'd be like, that's the song from Batman Forever. We have to listen to this. He's singing about Batman or something. I don't know. It was just like everywhere. And yeah, like age has not been kind to Batman Forever, especially in comparison to the Tim Burton Batman movies or the Batman movies that have come after. But I mean, at the time, that specific moment in time, Batman Forever was the shit. And I saw it in theaters, and I thought it was the greatest movie ever at my young, tender, uninformed, uncultured age. But, I thought this is going to be the pinnacle of my summer, seeing Batman Forever. Robin's finally in the Batman movies. Holy shit.
Yeah, he had like a cool earring too and everything.
Yeah, he's not just a little kid. He's a cool ass 20-something of the 1990s. He rides a motorcycle. He hotwires the Batmobile. Like, he's not just Burt Ward running around in tights. Nah, this is a Robin that you could like go out for a beer with.
It could be like consensual adult relationship there.
Right.
Batman and Robin. Like,
right.
It wouldn't be weird.
Yeah.
Nothing about it would be weird anymore.
No, exactly.
The age gap is acceptable.
Although, considering the influence Bruce Wayne has in Gotham, it's still pretty much a power imbalance where he your parents died? Your life's in ruins?
Yeah, but like, if you're Bruce
mansion.
Wayne in Gotham, you can't have a relationship with anyone without it being a power imbalance.
I guess that's true, yeah.
I feel bad for that guy. He's got a lot going on.
He does. Anyway, so like there was life before Batman Forever, and then there was life after Batman Forever, and it's separated by a bold line, or what I call the Prime Chase Meridian. Little navigation globe.
This is what you make me do. You make me.
Oh, you're opening the beer.
Yeah,
okay.
Fucking. What is it? It's not even 11.
Not even 11 a.m. when we're doing this. Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, Jeff. That's my spirit.
It's Saturday somewhere. I always say that. Actually, it's Saturday here. Oh, that's
it
good
is.
to know.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's St. Patrick's Day somewhere, all right? Jesus. Anyway, so yeah, summer 95 was supposed to be the summer of Batman Forever and rubber nipples and a Two-Face who constantly flips a coin to get the result he wants. The greatest Batman movie ever. But to quote a guy who's been dead for almost 40 years, Jeff, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. Because very shortly after Batman Forever, I would stop thinking about Batman Forever. I wouldn't really think about it much anymore until I did this very episode. Because another sequel would release that June. That would fall under a lot of the same criteria that Batman Forever did. And it would actually go on to define the rest of the summer for me. And the rest of my life. Donkey Kong Land. He's talking about Donkey Kong Land. Oh, that's where this was going. That's right. Donkey Kong Land. And when I went on the second trip that summer in August, my family trip to visit other relatives in Pennsylvania. Oh, what a life I led. It wasn't Batman I was daydreaming about in the car. No, it was Donkey Kong.
Hyle is whenever you say visiting relatives in Pennsylvania, I can't help but think of that as like a euphemism for where your dead dog went. Just like, what happened to Fluffy? Oh, he's fine. He's visiting relatives in Pennsylvania.
Right.
He'll be fine. Yeah. So kind of awkward.
It is, and it's because both my parents are from Pennsylvania, and they were the only ones to
that would explain it. Yeah,
they were the only ones to leave Pennsylvania, so it was like, oh, let's go visit relatives in Pennsylvania. But
so were they in like eastern Pennsylvania, or were they in Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania. Oh, Pennsylvania, yeah. My friend.
That's fine.
Like it wasn't up Philly I was visiting. It was but
I can't wait to go to Constitution Hall. No.
No, but the thing is, Pennsylvania actually worked in my favor because one of my most vivid memories from childhood, from August 95, I had my Game Boy in my hand, Donkey Kong Land snugly wedged in the slots, that banana yellow contrasted against the boring gray of the original brick Game Boy. I had my July 95 Nintendo Power in my lap, the first Nintendo Power I'd ever bought, Donkey Kong Land on the cover, but previews of Donkey Kong Country 2 opened up. The spread was over my lap, so I had like the first images of Dixie Kong and Crocodile Isle, just there. And I remember driving through, well, not me driving, but my dad driving through the mountains of Pennsylvania, the Alleghenies, and looking at the mountains while I looked down on the map screen of the Monkey Mountains in Donkey Kong Land, and just getting like this tonal conjoinment of bliss, like imagining like the mountains I was seeing were the same mountains on my Game Boy, and simultaneously imagining what Donkey Kong Country 2 was going to be like while I was playing Donkey Kong Land. And I was just all in on Donkey Kong all of a sudden, because Donkey Kong Country had been a game I loved when it came out, rented it shortly after release, got it Christmas 94, and played it religiously up through the spring till we beat King K. Rool. We being me and my friend Elliot. We did the 2-player team, right? And I love Donkey Kong Country, and I made this vow that I would buy every sequel that would come out from Donkey Kong Country, not realizing that this would lead me down the primrose path to It's Mr. Pants and like Kinect Sports Rivals, and like I didn't realize at the time what sequel would come to mean in my head, and the various spin-offs and weird like diversions and very, very intense arguments online about what constitutes a Donkey Kong Universe game, and us arguing about Super Mario Odyssey. And if, I wasn't thinking about that at the time. I was just thinking, oh, they're going to be making sequels to this. They have to. So I'll be buying all of them. Yep. But yeah, so like Donkey Kong Land was really where it all changed for me, where Donkey Kong Country went from being this game that I really liked to it being my primary fandom, my obsession. And I don't think I would have had that had it not been for Donkey Kong Land. Had we just jumped from Donkey Kong Country to Donkey Kong Country 2, I feel like the universe wouldn't have been as fleshed out in my mind, and I feel like I wouldn't have been as primed and ready for DKC 2 as I was. Donkey Kong Land is this important evolution of my own fandom, and I think it's important for the series as a whole. And I don't think that is something that is really appreciated nowadays. And when I was approaching the 25th anniversary of Donkey Kong Land, I was really reflecting upon it, and I just realized, I would not be as big of a fan of Donkey Kong. I probably wouldn't even be the guy running DK Vine if it wasn't for Donkey Kong Land releasing when it did, serving as that bridge, and really solidifying my ultra fandom when it comes to all of this nonsense. So yeah.
Donkey Kong Land is a interesting one for me because, as you know, I'm just a teenage boy. I'm so much younger than you.
You're just a baby.
I'm just a little baby. I'm about to do my driver's test, so fingers crossed. Maybe I can get my learner's permit. So my relationship with the Donkey Kong Country games was just kind of like born into them. Like Donkey Kong Country was a game that came out when I was a little kid, and so it just was always there. It was like I played Mario Brothers, Super Mario World, Mario Brothers trilogy. I had All Stars. I had all the stuff, and I was like, I was well aware of Mario. Everybody played Mario, but it wasn't like Donkey Kong Country comes along and completely like upends everything because I'm like, wow, it's so much. Look at it and compare it to Mario. It was more like they both always coexisted, and I just was like, yeah, I like Donkey Kong Country better, but we still have Mario. And Donkey Kong Country 2 came out. I didn't actually know they came out with Donkey Kong Country 3 because I was so young that I wasn't like reading magazines or on the internet. And so anyway, I didn't have Donkey Kong Land right away. And then when I did get it, I was blown away. So this was obviously if we're talking Game Boy games, we're talking pre-Game Boy Color, we're talking pre-Pokemon. And so for me, the Game Boy, which was cool. Who didn't like the Game Boy? But it was a machine to play Tetris. It was a machine to play Super Mario Land 1. I never had any of the sequels, so I'm like, okay, Super Mario Land 1, what is this? It's pretty cool, but like it's still Mario, and Mario is just that thing that is the primitive thing that's not as good as Donkey Kong Country. And then this is an even more primitive version of that because it's on the Game Boy. And it's this big gray cube. The Game Boy came out in what, 89?
80 is something like that. It was
Yeah,
the late
so like
80s.
when I'm comparing this Game Boy device that I'm playing on to what I'm seeing around other toys in the world, there's sleeker toys. I had a fucking Furby, Hyle. I had enough technology to go to the moon with my Furby, and yet they're putting a Game Boy in my hands, and I'm looking at this thing, and I'm thinking, it's like looking at like an old wood panel TV set with legs and giant knobs on it, and you're like at your grandma's house with the shag carpet, and you're like, yeah, that's what a Game Boy is. This like, when did you get this? Did you get this after the war? This was your present for coming home from Vietnam? I don't know.
Yeah,
this
actually,
crazy.
not Nazi scientists that we recruited after the war had actually developed the Game Boy.
They did, yeah, which is, it doesn't make up for it, but like if we, it does a little, I don't know. So I thought the Game Boy was great, playing games on the go. It wasn't the only device at the time that was like a portable electronic toy. There were cheaper ones, like, I don't know, little whatever you call those. They were all kinds of little electronic devices in the mid 90s, and a lot of them looked sleeker.
The Tiger Electronics.
Yeah, like Tiger Electronics and garbage. And so just, aesthetically, the Game Boy felt like a dinosaur. And then here comes Donkey Kong Land with, like you said, the vibrant banana yellow casing. And obviously, Donkey Kong Land is a significant downgrade from Donkey Kong Country, right? No question about it. But when the only thing I really had to compare it to is Super Mario Land 1, it was a quantum leap. It was probably a bigger difference than comparing Donkey Kong Country to Super Mario World, just like Donkey Kong Land on the Game Boy felt like, it was like, wow, okay, now we're cooking with fire. This is modern technology. You have sprites that make up a whole Donkey Kong. You compare that to the little bitty Mario sprite on Super Mario Land. It's like, wow, look at all this. There's portals and a pig. The pig can fly. Mario can't do that. So anyway, I thought it was pretty wild. And I never did get the sequels. I didn't get Donkey Kong Land 2, Donkey Kong Land 3. I didn't have those. But Donkey Kong Land was amazing to me because not only was it just like, it felt like this incredible accomplishment on this like ancient dinosaur of a handheld device.
Yeah.
But just the fact that it was so short to like, you could play through the whole thing without even saving. You know what I mean? So it was just like, it was my go-to thing to be playing with me everywhere I went, handheld, up until Pokemon came out, because then, Pokemon is Pokemon.
I mean, it is. I played Pokemon. I'm not gonna try to dispute that. I also have vivid memories of playing Pokemon because I was in high school when Pokemon came out. That's how fucking old I am, Jeff. That's how fucking near the grave I actually
I think I got
am.
Pokemon for my 5th birthday.
Oh, look at me. Ooh, hoo, 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 hoo. Now, I was shaving my pubes when Pokemon came out, all right? That's
well, we don't know that I wasn't, just because I was 5. So I could have had a hormonal thing and just like a goddamn jungle down there, and my parents had to be like, listen, all right, the doctor says that this is going to be okay, but we're going to have to shave your pubes for you like once a month.
But I remember playing Pokemon, walking through the grass of Pallet Town, like 1 a.m. Friday night, Saturday morning, like just staying up on my Game Boy. I was playing on my Game Boy Color by that point, right? But yeah,
right, yeah, it's an upgrade.
So I played Pokemon, but yeah.
Did you remember there was this Pokemon they called him Haunter?
What?
Haunter, the Pokemon Haunter.
Haunter.
You remember that one?
I don't remember that one.
Well, it was a Pokemon. It was named Haunter, And I was just going to say, like, that's every Pokemon's fan's favorite Pokemon, but then you don't even know who it is. So I guess you wouldn't notice it if you've never left the grass outside Pallet Town.
Oh, Haunter is the one that doesn't really look like a ghost. He's the he's like an evil Furby type looking creature.
Yeah, he floats. He flies. But yeah, everyone back in 1998, they came out with that. Then everyone was just like, you know what? I really think Haunter is cool. And then it's like 40 years later now or whatever, and they come out with a new Pokemon game, and people are playing that, and they're just like, you know what? I think Haunter is cool. Haunter is cool. That's my takeaway on Pokemon. So anyway, Hyle, this is a Donkey Kong show.
It is See, I don't know who Haunter is. I can tell you who Cackle is. I can tell you who Cloak
Haunter
is.
He's the Diddy Kong of Pokemon. Like, no, Haunter is... He's not the star, but he's definitely the most popular.
I think you're making up Haunter's popularity.
Well, okay. Granted, there's 150 or more to see, so there might be more divisions in the ranks of what is the best Pokemon. But if you were gonna narrow it down scientifically, it's Haunter all day, baby. Like, well, come on.
I know, you see, he's not even the first ghost Pokemon I was thinking, because I was thinking of Ghastly and Gengar, and then you're like,
Haunter's the one in the middle. Yeah, Haunter's the one in the middle of those.
Okay, well, you're like Haunter, and I'm like, no, those other two ones that I know better. So I dispute your hypothesis that Haunter is this, like, the quiet, silent majority's favorites.
This is the problem. This is why I'm so tired of our society being anti-intellectual. This rejection of science that's going on right now, it is dangerous to say the least. And it's people out here that won't acknowledge Haunter's the best Pokemon. I don't get this at all. Anyway, we can move on, Hyle. We can agree to disagree. I guess.
Yeah, I've seen the video where they wouldn't even let the woman in until she acknowledged Haunter was the best Pokemon, so she slammed the glass doors and licked them. Remember that? I think that was the context of that. I don't really know. I just view things in a peripheral. Anyway, so yeah, Donkey Kong Land had a very big impact on me and you, but we have a call to take, so we'll hear what impact it had on one of our listeners. And then we're going to talk about why Donkey Kong Land actually had an impact on the Donkey Kong series. Because it's a game that I think modern wee folk, the ones that are in diapers or have just gotten out of diapers, they're not going to play it. It's a monochromatic game from 1995 for the original Game Boy. You know, maybe they'll download a ROM of it and they'll play it for a few minutes and they'll be like, eh. But I argue that Donkey Kong Land has actually had one of the largest impacts and is one of the biggest inspirations for the Donkey Kong series to this day. So we'll get into all of that, but let's take this call right here, the one I'm about to play after I stop talking. But when will that be? Is it right now? Is it now?
Hey, my favorite thing... Oh, my name's Rick, by the way. My favorite thing about Donkey Kong Land are the pigs with the wings. They're way cooler than that checkpoint maggot. Oh, and Donkey Kong Land 3 being in color is really cool too. The color version. See you guys.
Thank you for the call, Rick. Rick, a hogwash aficionado, if ever I heard one.
I love the idea. So I just think that flying pigs is such a like common and comfortable phrase, a flying pig. So when someone comes along and says that pig with the wings, as the way to describe it, I'm just tickled. I'm like, wow, they're stepping outside the box.
They went the long way to describe that. They went the long way around on that one, right? It's like the flying pig. No, the pig with wings, right? Thank you for the call, Rick. Hogwash is obviously what a lot of people think of when they think about Donkey Kong Lands, and that's actually what a lot of the non-TV marketing was focused on. And I think part of that, and I don't know precisely the rationale behind the creation of the baddie Hogwash, the flying pig, baddie. There was really no point for Hogwash, considering I think Neckies were in the game, and they essentially serve the same role that Neckies do.
Maybe there's a gameplay purpose around wanting a smaller, rounder sprite for a flying enemy that you could use instead of a Neckie?
I mean, I'm not a science man when it comes to game development. You have to talk to like Mitchell Wolf, among the DK
You know what? He'll tell you how cool. He'll tell you how fucking cool Haunter is. I promise you that.
I'm sure he would. So I think the only Neckies in Donkey Kong Land, now that I'm thinking about it, like there were mini Neckies, obviously, but there were just the Neckies that chuck coconuts, not the Neckies that fly. And so maybe Paul Makachek, who was the lead programmer, was like, okay, well, I don't want to confuse the Neckies, so I'm just going to swap out the flying Neckies for a flying pig. Fuck it.
Well, I think that screen real estate could be an issue here because Neckie is a wide sprite, and Hogwash is very rounded. So maybe there's a screen real estate consideration going on there. We're just talking out of our asses. We really don't know, people.
We don't know. We're not. Like I said, we're not sciencemen when it comes to game development. But I know that they had sprite issues with later Donkey Kong Land games, and that's why you don't ride the animals in Donkey Kong Land 2 or Donkey Kong Land 3. You only transform into them. It's because, well, we only had so many like pixels we could use on the screen, so we couldn't have the Kongs riding the animal buddies. Wasn't really an issue with Donkey Kong Land. You rode Rambi and Espresso full stop, but I think part of it was what you said, but I also think the whole idea behind Hogwash the Flying Pig, and it's something that Nintendo Power even acknowledged on the cover for their Donkey Kong Land issue, was we're doing ACM graphics on the original Game Boy when pigs fly. And I think that was like a joke that somebody said at Rare, and so they just ran with it. I could be wrong, that's just a hunch, but I think the fanciful, ludicrous nature of attempting the same type of graphics, that it was already a miracle you could get them to run on the Super Nintendo, right? Like, that was why Donkey Kong Country was so mind-blowing, was you got this to work on the Super Nintendo. So then to do it on the Game Boy, which is just several rungs beneath the Super Nintendo, I'm sure someone at some point said, when pigs fly, and so they put a flying pig in the game. And Hogwash has seen very...
But someone else probably was just like, are you going to put this on the Game Boy? My ass! And then they could have made that an enemy, but they didn't. I don't know why. They could have had maybe like a little bouncing hippity-hop ass. Just hopping at you. It's hopping at you. It's going to swallow you right up. You don't want to get swallowed up in there.
Yeah, I think originally Nemo, the Nautilus that chases you in Kremlantis, was originally just an ass that gobbled you up. It was like, oh, here come the buttocks, and they chomp. No, but Hogwash is seen early on. He's seen in like the second level of the game, not like precisely the second level of the game. So, it's like, let's put Hogwash on front. Let's put him on the box art. There's Hogwashes flying front and center on the box art. So Hogwash was front and center in a lot of the non-TV marketing. The TV marketing was really weird because it involved shirtless teenagers, which I don't know if you ever saw the original Donkey Kong Land commercial. It basically had an entire classroom of high schoolers, mid-90s high schoolers, teenage boys, collectively lose their mind over Donkey Kong Land and de-evolve into a more bestial state. And so they begin grunting and hopping around and taking off their shirt and fucking just hardcore, just running a train on each other. And they actually at one point do put the Game Boy in their pants and they wiggle around. And I think at some point Nintendo of America said, you know what, this is probably a bit much.
Like, maybe we shouldn't just film the genuine reactions of fans and put it on TV.
That's why Nintendo, and that, like, That was still 4 years before DK Vine, but that's why they've never really gone out of their way to interact with us in any public capacity, because they're like, nah, we've seen what happens when Donkey Kong fans get excited about Donkey Kong. No, thank you.
They know they made a monster, yeah.
Right. So eventually they pulled that commercial and they redid a second commercial. This barely ever happens for games, especially Nintendo games. They did a second commercial for Donkey Kong Land, this time with a CG Donkey Kong. It's the famous one where he grabs the plate of bananas, but it's a trap and the Game Boy falls on him and he's like, "Whoa, whoa," and his eyes bug out. That was that sound that I just made out of my mouth. It's an I sound. Anyway, that's where that commercial came from. And that didn't debut until late summer, early fall, like running up until when Donkey Kong Country 2 was going to come out. So the hype train for Donkey Kong Land continued long past its release. For a Game Boy game, like it had about half a year of marketing behind it, which was unprecedented. They also released a Donkey Kong Land bubblegum, Jeff, and this is something that has been completely lost to the sands of time. It was actually a pre-existing series of bubble gum that, like, they packaged them in Game Boy, like little plastic replicas of the Game Boy itself, and you pop it open and they're like bubblegum sheets, right? It's a whole sheet of bubblegum, like a fruit roll-up of bubblegum, but completely rolled out, right? And so this line launched a few years before that. They had like different Game Boy games on the front. Oh, you can buy, I want to buy the Super Mario Land bubble gum. But by this point, that had all been discontinued and there's only Donkey Kong Land bubble gum. And I bought a shit ton of that. I don't even like bubble gum because I feel like bubble gum is just, it's like the porn of food. It gets you all like hungry and ready, but you can't actually participate. It's not real food. It just makes you horny for food.
I don't like bubblegum kind of like flavor of gum. You know what I mean? Like I feel like if I'm chewing on gum, I need it to be very flavorful. Yeah. Because it's just kind of such a bland thing. And then the problem with that is the really nice flavorful ones dissipate. The flavor's gone so quickly. You just like a fruity one, like they have them. What do they call them? Fruit stripes or fruits, whatever's. You put that in there, and you're like, fruit, fucking watermelon, love that. And then it's like, oh, okay, it's gone. Now it's just a blob in my mouth.
Yeah.
Which don't get me wrong, I'm not talking shit about blobs in mouths. So whatever you're into at home, it's just not right. Funny.
See, that's why I prefer fruit snacks. And I'm a grown-ass man who's like 70, right? But I prefer fruit snacks. So I go to the grocery store, I go to the fruit snack aisle, and I buy all the Gushers, I buy all the fruit roll-ups, all the fruit by the foot, anything that's gelatin-free, and I cram them in my mouth hole. And for me, it's like bubble gum you can fuck. That's really what they should call Gushers. Bubble gum you can fuck, because I get to actually enjoy the bubble gum to completion.
You get the release of like actually eating it.
Yeah. I swallow it. I defecate it. I go through the whole thing. With bubble gum, you swallow it and they're like, it's going to be in you for 7 years. And I'm like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, because then you're like, I have to at least live another 7 years because I don't want them to find that in my autopsy, because that would be embarrassing.
Well, you just don't want it to go to waste, really, is the main thing.
Yeah,
it's like, I don't want it to go to waste.
There are starving children in blank, and if I swallow the gum, how will they get to swallow the gum?
If we were going to take out all the gum out of all the dead bodies that had not yet broken down, we could feed this world.
I think that could be a charity single, like, the Live Aid and the Band-Aid and whatever. All those charity singles with like 30 people in the studio from the mid-'80s.
It'd just be like me and fucking Huey Lewis and Pat Benatar.
That's right. Exactly who I was thinking of, by the way. And we could do that about, taking the gum from autopsies and using it to feed the world.
Settled. All right.
This is a plan. This is not just a plan. This is a presidential platform, my friend.
All right. I'm running.
I mean...
# he's running. They all know who they're talking about. All right, but you know what though? The thing with Hogwash is, I think it gets so much publicity of like being so iconic of this game, and I think it's just the fact that it is emblematic of how one, weird the game is overall.
Yeah,
and then two, actually it is a unique. It's a game full of unique elements. While the sequels, Donkey Kong Land 2 and Donkey Kong Land 3, are less so that case. And so I think that there is a huge soft spot in the fandom for this game, even though people recognize that this one probably plays the worst of the three. It is the one people actually really value the most because it has unique elements to it, unique world archetypes, and yes, it has flying pigs. Sorry, it has the pig with the wings.
The pig with the wings. And I think the pig with the wings is just kind of shorthand for everything else. All those weird, slightly askew elements that Donkey Kong Land brought, it built on what Donkey Kong Country gave us. And then it said, what can we add? What can this very small Game Boy team add to the Donkey Kong Country experience? Well, let's make it a little bit weirder and a little bit less grounded. And I think it looked to Super Mario Land for influence there. When you look at Super Mario Land, which is basically just the same thing, it's taking Super Mario Brothers style gameplay, specifically I think the first Super Mario Brothers, handing it off to a different team on a lesser platform with less resources, less memory, less power behind it, and saying like, okay, We've got this template, so let's get a bit weird with it. And I think being on the Game Boy, being smaller budget, I think there are kind of just allowances for that. So Super Mario Land was a game about a space alien coming down, and there were weird like moai heads, and it was surrealist in a way that the original Super Mario Brothers, which is basically just Alice in Wonderland with bricks. It's surrealist in a way even that wasn't, right? And Donkey Kong Land does the same thing. We as Donkey Kong fans, or at least vintage DK Vine, like DK Vine during the buyout era, always had this platform, this position that, hey, Donkey Kong games, yes, they're cartoony. They're about cartoon apes and monkeys, but they have this sense of realism to them. They're kind of like set in a natural world that's only a few steps removed from our own. So you can have like googly-eyed creatures running around in them, but there has to be this familiarity with our own world. It can't get too crazy. And that's what one of the problems we had with Jungle Beat initially was, this seems too crazy. What is a fucking cobcock?
You get to swim. You get to swim through flying jello.
Flying jello, yeah. And, well, gelatin-based food. And as a vegetarian, that just repulses me, Jeff. But, I mean, it'd be like, you might as well just swim in beef flesh and blood and gristle. Well, why not?
Gladly.
I think where Jungle Beat made some missteps and Donkey Kong Land didn't was Donkey Kong Land built on the templates of Donkey Kong Country and said, okay, we'll have a flying pig here, we'll have a cloud level here, but then you would always return to the jungle, the same jungle, or the cave levels, or there was enough to ground you that you would then be ready for the flights of fancy, where Jungle Beats was a new team, not Rare, and was the primary console game of that generation, and already married to this weird peripheral that the fan base was heavily divided upon. So for Jungle Beat to then come in and say, we're going to have chicken plants, and we're going to have giant snow moles, and here is this prehistoric millipede that chases you. It's like, oh, okay, what? No, I don't like this. No, this is too much. I was fine with flying pigs, but you've taken it too far, Donkey Kong. And you know, obviously, like, I have made my peace with Jungle Beat, and I kind of adore all of those surrealist, absurdist elements in it, but it was a bit too much, where Donkey Kong Land kind of takes that stuff. It's like when you have to trick your dog into taking medicine. You hide it in all of the good stuff. So for me, like, the bizarro nature of Donkey Kong Land was still hidden within a nice, juicy ball of normalcy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think, well, there's an element to it where when you talk about how Donkey Kong Land is so out there for the 2D platformers of that era, Donkey Kong Country trilogy and Donkey Kong Land trilogy, you're like, Donkey Kong Land is the weird one. And when you really look at it, it's a pretty grounded, like, straight similar game to Donkey Kong Country, minus for a couple clearly weird elements sprinkled into it. And so those things stand out, and you say, that's the weird one, but it doesn't feel wrong. It doesn't feel out of place, because it's just like icing on a normal cake. It's weird. It's weird icing on a normal cake. So you're like, yeah, you've got, like, you're exploring Donkey Kong Jungle, and you go out and you get on the Gangplank Galleon, and then there's, like, some mountains and stuff. And yeah, you ran into a flying pig along the way, but, like, you know, flying pig is not that much crazier than a gorilla that wears a tie. So, like, it's fine. It's just like it's sprinkled in the weirder stuff. And obviously, you know, really, Donkey Kong Country 3 gets out there with being cartoonier. And, you know, Donkey Kong 64 especially gets way more out there. But I think the fact that Donkey Kong Land is remembered as weird is also the fact that it is sandwiched between Donkey Kong Country 1 and Donkey Kong Country 2. And Donkey Kong Country 1 is, like, the most grounded realism naturalist game in the franchise. Yeah. And there never will be a game that takes a game with Donkey Kong in it and makes the environment so photorealistic and grounded and atmospheric like that game did.
Not just the environments, but the music. A lot of the music was just built on a structure of, oh, here's water dripping down from the stalactites, right, in this cavern, and then that's going to form, like, the template for the melody, or you've got, like, just the discordant noise of the mine, and then you'll hear dogs barking in the background. Whoa, what is creepy, spoopy.
Yeah, but you take the forest levels, the Vine Valley, you take the background on the forest level, all right? Remove that little mini Necky from the scene, remove Donkey Kong from the scene, and put fucking Lara Croft in there. And it would not look out of place.
Right.
You know what I mean? You put a photorealistic, you know, human being in that scene, and you're like, oh yeah, this is a game about, like, a human adventurer running through a forest. It wouldn't look weird, because that is how grounded and realistic the environments, and you're right, the music aided in that sensation as well. And so I think that's what makes Donkey Kong Land feel more out there, is because it's like we had the most realistic game in the franchise, followed by the first game to be weird in the franchise.
And you're right, like, I feel like Donkey Kong Land set the stage, and it made it acceptable for me. Like, I love Donkey Kong Country 3. A lot of fans don't. And part of it is it's too weird. But I feel like because I had Donkey Kong Land to show me that Donkey Kong could get a little bit more absurdist than what Donkey Kong Country presented, it made it acceptable to eventually have banana birds, to eventually have talking tomatoes in Donkey Kong 64. And I think that was an important part of my Donkey Kong education, is that here is a game that is still basically structured around Donkey Kong Country. A lot of the archetypes from Donkey Kong Country are levels in this game. It's built around that gameplay and that style, but we're going to make it different. We're going to make it goofier, a little weirder, but it's still the same. And I think having that extension of Donkey Kong Country was vital to really allowing where Donkey Kong would go in the future. and have me remain on board with it and not like say, you know what, I don't really like where the series is headed. I'm out. I'm going to go buy a PlayStation. Bye, everyone. Bye. It didn't happen with me because I had Donkey Kong Land. So, yeah, I've stayed loyal to this series through all of the struggles and the corporate shenanigans and the uncertainty. I've stayed in love with this rather than have it be a nostalgic bit of my youth, like Batman Forever, where I'm like, oh, I remember when I was super into that. Yeah. Didn't happen. I still love it as much as I did then. And I know that wouldn't be the case without Donkey Kong Land. So, that's what it means for me, though. Like, I just keep going on about my own personal experiences. And granted, this is, my podcast, my website, so fuck it. I can do that all I want. But I really wanted to talk about what effect Donkey Kong Land has had on the wider Donkey Kong universe. And, I think showing that it was weirder did mean a lot. But it's also important because later Donkey Kong games have pulled stuff from it. Elements, mechanics, but it also informed a lot of the lore. Because Donkey Kong Country was the first Donkey Kong game to really have lore. It established a sense of place. Like, this is where Donkey Kong lives. This is what Donkey Kong is about when he's not chucking barrels at Mario or getting kidnapped by Mario or fighting bugmen. This is what Donkey Kong is about. This is his life. Oh, he's an old man now, by the way, and this is his descendant. This is who we're going to be following from now on. But, it gave Donkey Kong really context, which is something that the arcade games never really had. Donkey Kong 94, which preceded Donkey Kong Country by a few months and kind of reintroduced Donkey Kong kind of in a covert way, like, oh, here's this new version of the arcade Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, and we're promoting it with the Super Game Boy, this new device that you can play Game Boy games on a Super Nintendo. But really, this is just a way to reintroduce Donkey Kong to younger gamers because that's going to be our big game this Christmas. Anyway, Donkey Kong Country was the first one to really establish a world for Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong Land was the first game to fill in the details of that world. And you really get a sense for the first time of the history of the world. And the great thing, Jeff, you and I have talked about this quite a bit, is that Donkey Kong has bounced around post-Rare. They've been developed by Nintendo EAD. They've been developed by Namco, Payon, Retro Studios, and Ubisoft, and just everybody who's like had a hand in developing Donkey Kong. They have constructed a very consistent world for Donkey Kong that never really contradicts itself.
Yeah,
through
I think out of luck. Yeah, out of accident. Yeah.
And what's remarkable to me is like when I go through this list, and I've been sharing some of this on Twitter in the run up and after Donkey Kong Land's 25th anniversary, but I'm not saying any of this was by design. I'm not saying like Namco said, hey, you know what? We're making a sequel to Donkey Konga. We should really set it on the same setting as Donkey Kong Land. That would be great. The fans would love that. No, of course not. But somehow it lined up. Somehow Donkey Kong continuity has remained internally consistent. Donkey Kong geography has remained consistent for 26 years now. And I don't really know how that's happened except through sheer dumb luck and through whatever construct Rare created when devising Donkey Kong Islands and everything around it. It made it so it's very hard to contradict itself. And so we have had this very deep sense of place for Donkey Kong for 26 years in a way that like Mario has never had, that Zelda has never had. Like, yeah, Zelda always takes place in Hyrule, but Hyrule looks different in every game, and you just accept that. Donkey Kong Island, even when you have things like, the face is no longer on the side of Donkey Kong Island, the Donkey Kong face is no longer on the mountainside, it still lines up. Everything, all the locations are still corresponding to where they have been in past games. So, I don't know. It is kind of remarkable. And it's sheer dumb luck, but I also think there is some resilience. There's some like internal fortitude of these original concepts in Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Land that made it very hard to just disregard. If you're going to have Donkey Kong Island, you might as well just have it be laid out the same as it was in past games. Don't reinvent it. Like Yoshi's Island has seen that too. And I think it's just they did it. They created everything in such a way that there's always room to add to it, but there's never a need to disregard what has come before.
Yeah. One thing that's nice about Donkey Kong Land is that in some spiritual sense, it is also maybe a sequel to Donkey Kong 94.
Yeah.
So in a interesting way, it really kind of fleshes out backstory at least in a like you can read between the lines kind of sense. Of backstory of some of the arcade era of Donkey Kong, so it's not completely divorced from Donkey Kong Country lore, and also the Kremlings. So you've got Kremlantis, and you get more of that kind of Kremling temple architecture that was in Donkey Kong Country, and we kind of get more look at the fact that maybe Donkey Kong Island was originally occupied by Kremlings, like maybe it's a Kremling homeland that they just don't live there anymore. And that just instantly really sparks the imagination of like, what is the kind of political relationship between, and the historical relationship between Kremlings and Kongs. And then you've got Big Ape City as a world that, on the flip side, really fleshes out or gives you some room to use your imagination. This is the other thing. Donkey Kong games are big on lore in terms of what you can read into and fill in the blanks. They're not big on like telling you detailed backstories. Like it's not an RPG. It's not, but it's all the detail is there for you to kind of imagine the lore. And that is what's really compelling about it. But like Big Ape City, it gives you enough context to kind of imagine more of the backstory of Mario and Donkey Kong in the arcade, in the factory construction site setting, all that stuff, and you realize like, Donkey Kong 94 said that it all took place in Big City. Well, Donkey Kong Land comes out and says there's a place called Big Ape City, and so it's and they say that's where the arcade games take place. So then you get. It's not completely ignoring that girder-based construction site aesthetic that was at one point like the core setting of Donkey Kong games.
Yeah. That's really what's kind of remarkable about Donkey Kong Land is that it, in a way that Donkey Kong Country didn't, it embraces the past of Donkey Kong. And it also sets the stage for the future of Donkey Kong. And not just like, when I say past, not just Rare's past. It gets into a bit of the history of the Kremlings before we even get to Crocodile Isle. But it also, looks at Donkey Kong 94, which was the big Donkey Kong game a year prior to this, and says, okay, we're going to make the first world of Donkey Kong 94 the last world of Donkey Kong Land. And so you get like the past of Donkey Kong, but it also alludes to what's coming with Donkey Kong Country 2 as well. So it's kind of like this, everything that Donkey Kong was and was going to be circa June 1995 is inside Donkey Kong Land. And so it made me more appreciative of the arcade Donkey Kong games at the time because like you get to visit where the arcade games took place, Big Ape City, according to Donkey Kong Land. And the thing is, it's the only time besides the intro to Donkey Kong Country where Cranky, has the gramophone and he's on the red girders. and that bit in Donkey Kong 64 where Donkey Kong has girders inside his watchtower. It's the only time you see the girder aesthetic imagined by Rare. So you get like ACM graphics, the classic construction site as envisioned by Rare, and you get to run around it, and it's incredible. So it's like, yeah, it's the arcade games, but it has that realistic bent of Rare's Donkey Kong applied to it. It's really cool and really unique, and I think the Game Boy was the perfect place to do it because there's less expectations for it there. It's kind of like, it kind of makes more sense to do it on the Game Boy where you don't have the graphical horsepower, but you still get the finer details on it. It's really cool. But I said it also set the stage for what was to come, and that's because the first world of Donkey Kong Land was set in the Congo jungle, but it was the coastline of the Congo jungle. And what was still docked there from Donkey Kong Country? Why? The Gangplank Galleon. So this disappointment that I had as a gamer that the Gangplank Galleon, which was getting closer and closer and closer after every world in Donkey Kong Country, and then you get there and it's not a world, it's just the final boss fight. The fact that you get to have like two stages set on the Gangplank Galleon scratched that itch and kind of teased you for what was to come with Donkey Kong Country 2, where the entire first world was just this one big pirate ship. But yeah, so yeah, the first world of Donkey Kong Land had 2 levels set on the Gangplank Galleon that kind of combined different elements of what the Donkey Kong Country 2 team, which was, Greg Mayles, Steve Mayles, Chris Sutherland, just the Country 1 team back again, but they were like doing all these ship deck levels and rigging levels up in the mast, and Donkey Kong Land kind of had a combination of those elements on its own ship levels. And so it didn't really steal any thunder. And I don't know how much communication there was between Paul Makachek and the DKC2 team. I'm sure there had to be some, right? Because they were pretty much... the development times overlapped for the early 95 when they were starting work on Donkey Kong Country 2 and Paul Makachek was doing Donkey Kong Land. So I imagine like they were talking back and forth about like, so you're doing this with the sequel, right? So it's cool if I do this for the Game Boy game. But it came out in a really cool way that Donkey Kong Land in no way stole Donkey Kong Country's thunder. But it did kind of whet the appetite a little bit more for what was to come. Yeah.
And so what you also were saying earlier, we've alluded to a lot, is talking about what has come after Donkey Kong Land. You say it whet the appetite for what's to come, but not only did it do that in the sense of like the very immediate sense that it was kind of doing some of the same things that Donkey Kong Country 2 was about to do, but in the longer term sense, it has been revisited and referenced or explicitly or just less explicitly influenced future things well beyond Donkey Kong Country 2.
We'll be like rattling off these. We'll go down a list here of like everywhere Donkey Kong Land has showed up in the DNA of something. And I'm sure we'll miss one or two because we're not privy to development. I'm sure somewhere along the way, someone said, hey, in Donkey Kong Land, they did this. What if we incorporated that? And then it was kind of put in, but it's not immediately obvious to those of us on the outside, the normies on the street. So we'll go through everywhere that it's obvious to us, and in some ways that it's not actually, it was never probably intentional, but it still lines up within our understanding of Donkey Kong lore and the construct of the universe. So Donkey Kong Country 2 obviously was in development at the same time as Donkey Kong Land, and then after the fact. But the Stingray baddie Flotsam from Donkey Kong Country 2 and Donkey Kong Land 2 actually made their debut in Donkey Kong Land as the boss of the first world. Wild Sting was the Stingray enemy on the Gangplank Galleon. He would jump out of the water, and you would have to bounce on him, and, his speed would increase. It's just standard boss fight, standard shit. But, it's Flotsam who wouldn't actually debut as standard stock baddies until Donkey Kong Country 2. And I've never really known for sure if it was just kind of like one inspired the other, or they saw like these new baddies in DKC2 and like, do you mind if we swipe that for our boss in Donkey Kong Land? It's never been entirely clear, except like when I tweeted about it. I know like Paul Makachek has liked my tweet about it, so there's some correlation there, right? But it's really cool because obviously with Donkey Kong games, they usually take, especially in the Rare era, they would take a standard baddie and blow them up to make the boss. And this was pretty much how most of the bosses in the game were created. And so even in Donkey Kong 64, right, we would finally get the boss version of the armadillos, or puffed up. We get Puff Toss. And so Flotsam also had their own boss variation. It just happened before they even debuted as standard baddies. So that's a pretty cool bit of trivia there. When you go to trivia night at your local bar, you shouldn't actually be going to your local bar because there's a pandemic. But after the pandemic, if there is ever bar trivia nights ever again, you can go with that knowledge that Flotsam's debuted in Donkey Kong Land, and you can wow them at trivia night when it's inevitably asked by the MC. So, talk about the music really quick, Jeff. The music of Donkey Kong Land, because while a lot of them were composed by David Wise, the original Donkey Kong Country songs, it was actually Graham Norgate who did the reinterpretations of David Wise's tracks, but he also did several of his own compositions that they're very catchy, they're very earwormy in a different way than David Wise's music. Because of the nature of the Game Boy, the sound chip being what it is, they had to be a lot more traditional, I think, as far as what video game music was considered in 1995. So a lot more boppy, a lot more like, here's this simple melody. You
couldn't layer the music as much. You couldn't have as much depth of like atmospheric sounds and things going on in the background. So yeah, I think that they did kind of default back to making more melodic, just tunes, and it works. It works definitely for the game.
Yeah. And like they're very catchy. Like I will get the music of Donkey Kong Land stuck in my head in very weird ways. Like the obviously like the boss fight music, the dun 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 dun. That's Kiss from a Rose, but anyway. So the thing about that song, Jeff, is that it would reappear in another Rare game, but not a Donkey Kong game like you might imagine. Oh no. It was actually in Blast Corps, which Graham Norgate also did the music to Blast Corps. So he took this Donkey Kong Land song and he reinterpreted it for Blast Corps, which was a bit weird to hear the Blast Corps version, especially if you're so familiar with Donkey Kong Land, because it's like, whoa, what? No. But it happened. It happened. And it's more just Graham Norgate recycling his own music, much like Grant Kirkhope would do between various projects. Like you get a bit of some Banjo-Kazooie music in Donkey Kong 64, stuff like that. But Blast Corps. Now, in Rare Replay, did they edit the music out of Blast Corps?
You know what? I literally had asked and answered this question once, and now I don't remember.
Oh, no!
Now I don't remember. I remember the specific conversation coming up about, what they do about the music Is that an issue? Is it like something that it could, they would have to think about? And I don't remember the answer. I want to say that they've edited it out, but I can't remember. So don't quote me on anything because I'm dumb.
I know there's an instance in Rare Replay where they do edit out music because there's the fear that Nintendo actually owns the song because it appeared in a Donkey Kong game. And I can't remember if it was the instance of Graham Norgate's music in Blast Corps or if it was Grant Kirkhope's music in something else. I want to say it was Graham Norgate.
Yeah, I want to say that the song, it was edited out for Rare Replay. I don't remember for sure. But yeah, I mean, that's an entire just like fascinating topic about
right. Yeah,
what goes into what went into Rare Replay, but.
And that gets into one of our favorite topics, are the legalities of Rare properties and Donkey Kong properties post buyout. For more on that, if you want to hear Jeff and I go on and on and on and on and on about that, listen to the recent episode we did about Diddy Kong Racing and why it is just stuck in legal limbo. Because that is just the pinnacle of absurdity. If
you do listen to that, don't quote me on anything I say in that one either, because between then and now, I was still stupid.
Also, Jeff is a couple beers deep at this point, so don't listen to anything he says after this either.
Yeah, I've got like an IV bag of Heineken. I don't know why I picked that. I don't drink Heineken. I don't know why that was my example. Anyway, so moving on from Blast Corps, there's also the handheld team at Rare, which did Donkey Kong Land, did Conquerors Pocket Tales, which was the first Conquer game, but it was meant to be a handheld tie-in to the N64 Conquer game that did not come out and eventually reworked and became Bad Fur Day a couple years later and is a completely different experience. And so Pocket Tales is this odd relic of a time period when Conquer was meant to be a family-friendly platforming mascot character, and Pocket Tales still exists. And
yeah, so we got one Conquer game with the original iteration of Conquer that premiered in Diddy Kong Racing. And so even though like Chris Stever will swear to the day he dies and then he'll haunt us on Ouija boards afterwards by claiming that Conqueror's Pocket Tales is not canon, doesn't count. It is canon because it happened, and Conqueror is also in Diddy Kong Racing. And yeah, it works perfectly as kind of like, oh, here's where Conquer and Barry fall in love, right? Like this is the game. It basically ends with them hooking up. You don't, it's not like a Donkey Kong Land commercial. You don't see any of the intercourse. It's not a Donkey Kong Land commercial, but it essentially ends with them, walking, it's a moonlit lake and they're staring into each other's eyes. And then the implication is, oh yeah, they're going to get it on immediately after this fades to black, right there on the shores of the lake. But
I think a huge appeal of Bad Fur Day for me, I know this is a small tangent, is I think that the whole thing sells better when you look at this as a cutesy, family-friendly icon that has devolved into the state that he's in Bad Fur Day. Like it's. If you ignore all the other canon and say the only game that ever happened is Bad Fur Day, it's not as appealing to me because I like to think of him as the cutesy, family-friendly character that just gradually falls on hard times and becomes a drinker, and then all of a sudden, like, the adult world he's in is all vulgar and covered in shit. That is more appealing than just imagining that, oh no, he was always covered in shit. And he's always been a drinker, and it was always been an M-rated world, and it's like, no, it's fun to watch the transformation. That's what. Anyway,
no, that's another great point. You want to talk about how Donkey Kong Land made me appreciate Donkey Kong more, and how I wouldn't have this level of fanaticism I would if it wasn't for Donkey Kong Land setting the stage. Well, it's the same thing, buddy, when it comes to Conqueror's Pocket Tales. Conqueror's Pocket Tales isn't even that great of a game, but Conquer's Bad Fur Day would mean so much less if it wasn't for Conquer's Pocket Tales. So, anyway,
so this game by the handheld team, also same team behind Donkey Kong Land, and of course, they chose to reference their own game in a couple ways. One is when Conquer is idling in the game. You sit still for a long time. He pulls out a Game Boy and he starts playing Donkey Kong Land.
And it is explicitly Donkey Kong Land 2. It is the title screen music, Donkey Kong Land. And of course, at the time, 1999, if you have a Game Boy out and you hear Donkey Kong music, it's going to be Donkey Kong Land. So of course that makes sense. But I've seen people quoted, he's playing Donkey Kong Country. And I'm like, no, it's Donkey Kong Land. That is the Donkey Kong Land rendition of the Donkey Kong theme. Come on now. But yeah, he plays Donkey Kong Land, but also there's a more physical presence of Donkey Kong Land in the game, I think. So I believe that the models, in the game, I'm kind of bearing the lead here. One of the baddies that you encounter in Conquer's Pocket Tales are armadillos. And they are, in fact, exactly armies from Donkey Kong. Right down to their behavior, it is exactly the same. And I believe that they are the same models from Donkey Kong Land, where at the end of the day, it was just they were borrowing assets to fill out the baddie ranks. And it's like, we could use the armadillos from Donkey Kong Land, put them in Conquer's Pocket Tales, just kind of recycling elements, but it still, you could say, it's the same universe, so ergo they are armies. But I believe they are the exact models from Donkey Kong Land. I don't think they changed them. And you said that Slippas might be the snakes, and I'm still not clear if the snakes are supposed to be Slippas, but I think definitely armies for sure are the same from Donkey Kong
it's really
Land.
I hadn't actually thought about this until now, but in either case or in both cases, if indeed it is the Slippas as well, they fit and make way more sense in Conquer's world than on Donkey Kong Island. They're such kind of desert creature, an armadillo and the snake, the particular snake that Slippa is. They feel like they're American Southwest desert, animals, but you've got them on Donkey Kong Island running around the jungle. I don't know. They never really felt out of place when I was a kid playing Donkey Kong Country. But if I really do think about it, they are an odd animal choice, and they fit really well in Pocket Tales because it does have a Western kind of setting to it. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Donkey Kong 64, we've already talked about how weird Donkey Kong 64 was and how, a lot of people felt Donkey Kong 64 went too far with the kind of cartoony tone. And I agree tone-wise, it was kind of way off from where it should have been. But, you couldn't have just some of the fundamental quirkiness in Donkey Kong 64 without Donkey Kong Land having set the stage for it. But I also want to talk about a location in Donkey Kong 64 that could conceivably be argued as the same location seen in Donkey Kong Land. And this is, again, a little bit more in the abstract. I'm not saying the DK64 team planned this out, but it works. And Fungi Forest, of course, takes place on a floating landmass, off to the side of Donkey Kong Island. And you even see the floating landmass in pictures of Donkey Kong Island in the game. There are a couple points where you see portraits of Donkey Kong Island in Snide's HQ and a couple other places you encounter in the game world. And they've got this floating island there in this rendition of Donkey Kong Island. Donkey Kong Land, of course, established the cloud worlds, these floating land masses in the clouds off to the side of Donkey Kong Island. So they're the same place, is what I'm arguing, Jeff. And again, I know this is a leap. This is not necessarily what
that's the thing.
the DK64 team had in mind.
It's not a leap. It's the kind of thing where what we talked about earlier is how the lore of the franchise over time has all lined up so well, almost never on purpose, but never outright contradicting. And so when Donkey Kong Land was like, yeah, we've got this floating kind of world that's above the island. And then Donkey Kong 64 comes out and completely, probably unintentionally, is just like, oh yeah, we made an island that is just floating up there because we needed that to be where it's at.
We needed space.
Yeah, I don't know. So like it's there. And then so when they do that, maybe they didn't intend it, whatever, but it lines up perfectly where we as fans can look at it and just say, oh yeah, those are the same place. And it'll come back up again because, there are other examples of the floating islands around Donkey Kong Island. So yeah, I mean, it works. It just works.
Before we move on from the rare era of Donkey Kong, like when they were just the sole shepherds of the flock of Donkey Kong games, we should talk about two canceled games that one of them was less, I mean, they both never really got that far in development. One was never even announced at the time. It was just alluded to in scribes, although it got misidentified as exactly the nature of its the project. But the other one had a big E3 trailer around it, even got on the back of the GameCube box at launch, but ultimately it never came to be. It eventually became a Saberman game, and then that was eventually canceled as well. Of course, I'm talking about Donkey Kong Racing. And in the Donkey Kong Racing trailer, there's the bit where Diddy and Tiny are racing on the swordfish underwater. And they're racing. It's kind of hard to see, especially in the ultra low, like res, low fidelity of like the 2001 era internet video, but you see they're swimming through these underwater ruins, and in the background there is a Kremlin statue. And so yeah, Donkey Kong Racing would have actually used Kremlantis as one of its tracks, or at least that was the idea. Like, let's take different areas from different Donkey Kong games we developed. One of them was going to be Fungi Forest, it seemed to be. That was where it seemed to be Donkey Kong and Taj were racing on zingers through, in the homage to the Return of the Jedi speeder bike chase through Endor as Fungi Forest. Well, Diddy and Tiny were racing through Kremlantis. So Kremlantis would have conceivably been in Donkey Kong Racing had Donkey Kong Racing ever been more than a trailer that would become the pinnacle of our E3 dreams and hopes, and a high point that was never reached again. But also, Paul Makchek, after Donkey Kong Land finished development, he started work on a sequel of sorts that wasn't Donkey Kong Land 2, because he didn't do Donkey Kong Land 2 or 3. But he was going to do, or at least he was put in charge of seeing if they could do Donkey Kong on the Virtual Boy. And that was what we call Donkey Kong VB, but at the time, we thought it was going to be Donkey Kong Country 2, like a version of Donkey Kong Country 2. It was actually more of a sequel to Donkey Kong Land than anything. He used assets from Donkey Kong Land. And for more on that, listen to the episode Cameron and I did last season on Donkey Kong VB. But yeah, according to Paul Makchek, he only had like a level running in it before the project was pulled due to the Virtual Boy completely failing at launch. But instead of Kremlins, he had the rats from Battletoads running around the jungle, and Donkey Kong as well. Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Land. And Cameron actually made a mock-up of the screenshot, and I think Paul said that it looked very close to what it looked like. So as close as we'll ever see, at least.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we could have gotten Donkey Kong for the Virtual Boy had the Virtual Boy not been a miserable failure. Anyway, so, yeah, moving on to the post-buyout and the buyout era, it's kind of weird that Donkey Kong Land would resurface at all during this period, but it has in explicit ways and in ways that are more kind of isn't that funny how that lines up, sort of like Donkey Kong 64. So Donkey Konga 2, Jeff. Donkey Konga 2, such a weird way that this corresponds, but Donkey Konga 2, Namco's second, out of 3 Donkey Konga games, although it was the last one to be released outside of Japan. The whole game saw Donkey, Diddy, and Dixie essentially taking their bongo plane, quote unquote, on tour. And where do they go on tour? Well, at the beginning of the game, they look out on the coast of the Congo jungle and they see 2 islands in the distance, silhouetted in the distance. There is one island that is mountainous, just mountains. And then there is another island that is a city. And Cranky points to it and says, you go take your bongo plane on tour if you want to actually be bongo players, you idiots. You got to busk on the streets. I think like Namco was thinking, hey, we're going to make like these far off like locations where the Kongs are going to go on tour. And I think it was like a city facing a mountain. I don't know if it was supposed to be like Tokyo and Mount Fuji or something. I don't know. But it actually lines up, Jeff, with Donkey Kong Land, because Donkey Kong Land, of course, starts in a Congo jungle, and then you go off into the ocean, the sunken ruins of Kremlantis, and then all of a sudden you're on a mountain range, and then all of a sudden you're in a city. And Big Ape City, in the instruction manual, it says it's a Zeppelin ride away from Donkey Kong Island. Even though it's like considered, I think, part of Donkey Kong Island, it's still, you can reach it by Zeppelin, by blimp. And so if we're to follow the progress that they made in Donkey Kong Land, they started in the Congo jungle, they went out into the ocean, they're on a mountain range. Where did that come from? Oh wait, Donkey Kong Konga 2 says there is an islet. There's a small island off the coast that is a mountain. And then they're in a city? Well, wait, there's a city right there according to Donkey Konga 2. Oh my god, is this taking place entirely within the context of Donkey Konga 2? Or Donkey Kong Land? I say yes.
Yeah, it's gross. It's gross how well it lines up. It makes you sick. You're just like, okay, here I am playing a cash grab novelty bongo game with shitty licensed music, or shitty covers of licensed music. I'm banging on the bongos to fucking Mr. Boombastic and Good Charlotte, and here I am looking out and realizing, big brain time, that the lore of it established in this bongo game actually perfectly fits and reinterprets our understanding of the handheld accompaniment game to Donkey Kong Country, Donkey Kong Land, that released in 1995 that nobody remembers. And at that point is when you really step back and realize that you need to up your medication, because it just works so well, and you're like, man, what am I doing with my life? This bongo game, it just changed everything for me. It's great. It's actually awesome. So it goes with the Donkey Kong 64 thing we were talking about. It's essentially a bunch of people just kind of throwing shit at the wall on their own Donkey Kong projects in a way that unintentionally always lines up really well with what came before it, and only is noticeable by the fans who are actually picking apart a handheld game from 25 years ago. So
yeah. The thing is, when I played Donkey Kong Land, right, and I tried to ration out, well, where do these worlds take place? Because there's nowhere on Donkey Kong Island that would really fit Big Ape City or Monkey Mountains. But I came to the conclusion, well, we're in Kremlantis, we're in this sunken temple in the Atlantic Ocean. What if Monkey Mountain and Big Ape City are on these tiny islands just to the side of that? And that's where my fan conjecture took me in 1995, Jeff. And then 2005, Donkey Konga 2 comes out. And actually, it specifically says that just off the coast of Donkey Kong Island, there is an island that is a mountain, and there's an island that is a city. What the fuck? So as much as I loathe Donkey Konga 2, as much as I think it is the worst Donkey Kong game, as far as presentation and just what it is, I will take the original Donkey Konga 1,000 times over Donkey Konga 2, because I feel like Donkey Konga 2. Yeah.
Now, that's where I do have to step in, because Donkey Konga 2 has the better main title theme song, where it's like, Donkey Konga 2.
Yeah,
that
right.
That 2 is what makes all the difference in the world. It's just like, man, now it's an earworm, now it's bopping in your head. But like without that 2, I don't know. I just don't know how.
You're right. I was wrong, and I'm big enough to admit when I am wrong. But
that's not all there is. That's not all there is about Donkey Konga 2, Hyle, because it also set the stage establishing that on the mountain area of the game, which we just agreed is Monkey Mountains from Donkey Kong Land, there is a ski resort setting, and that kind of really ties into some of the Mario Kart tracks that are the Donkey Kong ski resort tracks.
So here's the fucking crazy thing, Jeff, right? So Donkey Konga 2, the backgrounds of where the Kongs go on tour, like you play the song and then there's a rotating background where the camera like zooms and swoops and pans, and it's just to give you something to look at while you're playing Smash Mouth, a very bad cover of Smash Mouth, on your bongos, on your little plastic bongos, like an idiot, and you're like. You're like boom, 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 and you're hoping that your roommates aren't like judging you silently because they're having sex in that room, and you're over there. Sounds like you're furiously masturbating. Like you're not even just masturbating, but you're punishing your own genitalia. But really, all you're doing is playing a bongo game on your GameCube. But in the scenery there, you've got. The different locations. So because there's a city, you've got kind of city-esque locations. You got like a port town, you've got a carnival, other places. You've also got the mountain setting, and you've got in the mountain setting a ski resort, and you got the chairlifts, you've got the lodges, you've all that, right? And weirdly enough, then, later on, not long after Donkey Konga 2, there would be Mario Kart DS. And this was the period where the Mario Kart teams were just arbitrarily assigning Donkey Kong ski resorts or snowboard resorts, just wintry resorts, as Donkey Kong's home track. So Mario Kart DS, you had DK Pass, and then Mario Kart Wii, you had DK Summit. They did it twice because they're like, oh, we don't have a track for Donkey Kong. We don't have a track that's identified as Donkey Kong's home track. They'll just give them this ski resort, and fans hated it. I remember people on DK Vine hated it. I hated it. And one of the reasons they hated it was, well, this doesn't really fit Donkey Kong. This has nothing to do with Donkey Kong. Indeed, there's nothing in the tracks that signify Donkey Kong in any way. They're populated by like Shy Guys, and there's the snowmen from Frap Snowland in Mario Kart 64. And it's just like, what is this? This isn't Donkey Kong. And I remember people on the forum at the time trying to reconcile, oh, it might take place on Gorilla Glacier, like maybe it takes place on Gorilla Glacier. No, it takes place on Monkey Mountain from Donkey Kong Land, because Donkey Konga 2 established that there's a ski resort on Monkey Mountain. Boom. Don't you feel better about those Mario Kart games now?
Yeah, look at that.
We're healing people, Jeff. That's what we're doing with this podcast. We're not just spouting nonsense about a game that's 25 years old. No, we are rubbing salve over long scarred wounds, and people can finally live again. Really, that's what we're doing. We're not just recording a podcast for our own amusement and because it was time to record a podcast. No. We're helping people. We're giving them their lives back.
Yeah. And so I guess all we really have to say is that you're welcome.
No, I don't need a thank you, Jeff. I don't do this for thank yous. I do this because I'm a really good person.
And then the next game that we talk about is Donkey Kong Barrel Blast.
Donkey Kong Barrel Blast. Now, some people would argue that this is the worst Donkey Kong game, not Donkey Konga 2, because there's no song at the beginning that goes Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, and then there's never a sequel, so you can't do Donkey Kong Barrel Blast 2. You can't do that. So that's a red X.
I mean, that's points off.
Right
points off where this points off. But that being said, I don't know. It's got On Guard the Swordfish on it, so how bad could it be?
Well, Donkey Konga 3 would have had Unguard. I mean, it did have Unguard the Swordfish, but only fans of Japan really got to experience that. So, anyway, Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, though, I bring it up because it had two archetypes, two archetypes that had two racetracks each assigned to it. And there was Mammoth Glacier and Alpine Peak. And I think it was Alpine Peak, maybe it was Mammoth Glacier that had a ski resort. It had chairlifts. It had, in this case, it wasn't Shy Guys going up the chairlifts. I think they were like the little monkeys that were populating on the sidelines
Hurleys.
of Barrel Blast. Well, yeah, there were the Hurley items that you get, named, of course, after Jorge Garcia's beloved character on Lost, Hurley. But yeah, we just refer to them as Hurleys in general. But they're just, Monkey Kongs from Donkey Kong Island, cheering them on. And yeah, so ski resorts once again. But we also saw more of the mountains. It doesn't really work as Gorilla Glacier. And actually, this came up on Twitter recently where somebody was like, I've always fan-wanked it that it was Gorilla Glacier, but you've shown me that it must be Monkey Mountain. And I'm like, yeah, I did. I did that. And then I looked in the mirror and I felt good about what I'm doing with my life. So,
yeah.
Monkey Mountains are the snowy mountains from Barrel Blast. But also there are two other tracks and a different archetype that the only way to describe this archetype, I guess, is Sky Temple. It's a bit more fanciful, but here's the thing, Jeff. Here's the thing about the Sky Temple. They take place on floating landmasses, much like Fungi Forest was located on, much like Chimpanzee Clouds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm on board with any of this Barrel Blast stuff, only because I have a pretty comprehensive theory that Donkey Kong Barrel Blast is a game about time travel, secretly. And
secretly. Oh, of course.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Cloud Temple is called Cranky's Temple. Why would Cranky have a temple while he's already alive? That temple is from his future when he's dead. The Mammoth Glacier is from the Ice Age because it has mammoths in it. And we've never seen prehistoric creatures roaming around Donkey Kong Island or the associated islands, at least not like living ones. We've seen reanimated skeletons. And then you've got the volcano levels, which are decked out with dinosaur bones. And then what else is there in that game? Some of them could be contemporary, like it's just a generic jungle and a shimmering ocean sea. Those don't have to be time travel based, but then there's this Cosmic Highway, which is shows the far future of the Kongs because there's robot Kongs and a giant barrel space station floating above the planet Earth. I think the game is about time travel, but it could be time travel to the same locations as Donkey Kong Land, but I don't think they're contemporary with the time period. So it could still be Monkey Mountains and Chimpanzee Clouds. But I think that game is about time travel.
Well, Jeff, have you ever considered, and just hear me out here, that those mammoths that you so callously describe as being the products of a bygone era might just be the displaced Snowhorn tribe who have left Saria along with King Tricky, the Earthwalker?
That's very possible. But have you considered that on the track Cosmic Highway, there's a part where you go through a Doctor Who time tunnel?
Yeah.
I think the whole game is about time travel, and that's the clue. That's the key that unlocks it all, is that there's a Doctor Who time tunnel on that track. Ergo, at least that track probably takes place in the distant future, because it's got robot Kongs and giant barrel space stations. But it could be that maybe several of the tracks throughout the game they time travel back in time and then set up a racetrack there with touristing monkeys around, but they're not all from that time period. They just traveled to do a race.
Well, Jeff, I think when we eventually have the spotlight episode on Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, we'll just have to have a battle royal to the death as we debate our points of view on what is the story of Donkey Kong Barrel Blast, because there is quite the story that is just beneath the surface of that game.
Yeah.
So,
and if you ever beat Donkey Konga 2, maybe you'll even play it.
Hey, eat my asshole. Just eat it out.
I might just do that. So now here's where we really get interesting, because Retro Studios obviously made their own Donkey Kong games, 2 of them. And
Retro Studios in Texas have made some great Metroid titles.
You can hear it coming. Remember that? All right. So
that was 10 years ago.
Shh. And so it was well publicized that when they were making Donkey Kong Country Returns, they went and played through all the Donkey Kong Country games, as well as all the Donkey Kong Land games, as well as Banjo-Kazooie for some reason, to pick out their influences and sort of inform making Donkey Kong Country Returns.
I like how that means so much to our fandom in particular, that Retro all they played were the Donkey Kong Country and Land trilogies and Banjo-Kazooie to be inspired by Donkey Kong Country Returns, and you just dismiss it. Like, for some reason, they just play Banjo-Kazooie.
I don't... no, you're not reading me right here, Hyle. I think it's a great thing, but it's also, if you were not a diehard Donkey Kong Universe fan, it would come off as like a very random, unexpected thing.
Oh, yeah, no, I'll cop to that. It's completely arbitrary, and it makes no sense, and I still question it to this day. I'm glad they did it, but I don't understand why.
Right? But anyway.
All right, so anyway, yes, there are influences from Banjo-Kazooie in there, but there are also influences from Donkey Kong Land. And considering this isn't a Banjo-Kazooie 22nd anniversary episode, this is a Donkey Kong Land 25th anniversary episode. As we all know, the 25th anniversary means way more than 22nd anniversary. 22nd anniversary means nothing. We'll keep talking about Donkey Kong Land. So in Returns, they pulled 1 or 2 things from Donkey Kong Land. I would argue that the Donkey Kong Land influence did become more pronounced until Tropical Freeze, but Donkey Kong Land, it tried to keep clean as much as it could. The Greg Mayles aesthetic, where we don't want to clutter the screen with stuff. Right, we want to keep this, we don't want to have counters on the screen at all time. So that's why things pop up and then they go away. So you collect bananas. Oh, great, there's your banana tally. Now it's going to go away until you collect another banana. One thing it did do differently, though, and all the Land games copied this after, were for your life total, it was permanently displayed on the bottom of the screen in a series of hearts. And I don't know why they made that decision, why they felt like it was important for you to always see the number of hearts you had, the number of lives you had. But it's something they did, and it's something they stuck to.
In the past, having 2 Kongs displayed on screen at the same time gave you a visual marker of how many hit points you could survive. So if you had Diddy trailing behind you, you knew you could take a hit. If you didn't have Diddy, you knew that taking a hit would lose you a life. But because the Donkey Kong Land games don't have enough screen real estate to have both characters displayed at the same time, when you tag out, they kind of teleport onto the scene and teleport away. Because you don't have that visual indication of do I have an extra hit point, because he's not following behind me, that is why I think having the hearts made sense to do that.
Even though it wasn't until Donkey Kong Land 2 that they thought to put, if you have the other Kong waiting to teleport in, they thought to actually have an icon of that character's head down on the screen with the hearts. That didn't come about till Donkey Kong Land 2, and it was a game changer. It completely improved the way you play the Donkey Kong Land series, but Donkey Kong Land didn't have that. They just had the hearts. But anyway, for whatever the reason, that was the case throughout all the Donkey Kong Land games. And so Retro, they were like, damn, the Donkey Kong Country games are hard. Let's make them even harder. But if we're going to do that, we need to make some concessions. We need to allow each Kong to have 2 hits instead of 1. So, in the original Rare games, Country and Land, you touch a baddie, boom, that's it for the Kong. They're done until you get a DK barrel. With their Retro games, Returns and Tropical Freeze, you could hit a baddie once, and then, but that Kong wasn't out until they got a second hit. And that not only improved single player, because a lot of those levels would be really hard. And you can see it in hard mode, but they would be really hard if you only had 1 hit. But it also improved the 2-player with both Kongs running around simultaneously. That way, you weren't just shedding lives left and right. So it makes sense why they had 2 hearts 2 hits, I should say. I gave away what I was getting to, but 2 hits. But they were permanently displayed on the screen as 2 hearts. And, you could say, well, hearts are kind of a universal signifier for health, but the whole having hearts permanently affixed to the screen thing in a Donkey Kong game really came about in Donkey Kong Land. And actually, I think it was Jungle Beat for the new play control version of Jungle Beat also utilized hearts on the screen.
I forgot about that. Yeah, they really fucked that game up when they ported it.
They did. I don't like the new play control version of Jungle Beat, but yeah. So actually, yeah, hearts came from that, but hearts were included in that version of Jungle Beat, but then they were also in Retro's games, and that all traces and sources back to Donkey Kong Land. But there is a more over-the-top, explicit homage to Donkey Kong Land in Donkey Kong Country Returns as well, and that is the Mole Miners.
Thou art the Mole Miners.
The Mole Miners.
The Mole Patrol.
The Mole Patrol. The Mole Patrol, right. The hard-hatted mole baddies that you encounter in the cave world of Donkey Kong Country Returns, which corresponds to monkey mines when you look at the map of Donkey Kong Island. But yeah, the mole baddies, which actually the Mole Patrol, the Mole Train, they were the boss of the cave world. But they're all moles, little moles that have little miner hats on them, which is, it is a thing that has been seen elsewhere. It's like flying pigs. It's not necessarily the sole domain of Donkey Kong Land. I think the Kirby series had a mole character with a hard hat. I might be wrong there, but I'm pretty sure. But yeah, having Retro play Donkey Kong Land, and then in their first Donkey Kong game, they have all of these moles wearing the hard hats. I think it's a clear inspiration from the World 3 boss in Donkey Kong Land, Hard Hat, who was another original creation for Donkey Kong Land that didn't have any corresponding baddies. Like, there weren't mole baddies throughout Donkey Kong Land. He was just the boss of the Monkey Mountains. And the boss fight itself was a game of whack-a-mole, right? He would pop up, he would throw his hard hat, kind of like K-Rool throws his crown, and you had to hop on his head and then see where he's going to pop up next and repeat as he increases in speed. But yeah, Retro actually made a whole enemy class out of Hard Hat, made the Mole Miners, the Mole Patrol. And
Yeah.
That one was super obvious. Like, fans were screaming that when they first saw screenshots of them.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's not an unheard of cartoon trope to have a mole that is wearing like construction like clothing, like a hard hat. But
because they're miners, because they dig holes
they're miners,
underground.
Yeah, but it also it's clearly a reference to Donkey Kong Land, because they played it before they made it, and yeah, they knew what they were doing. But where it really gets interesting to me is the influences in their sequel, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, which has a couple of interesting things that we've tied back to Donkey Kong Land. One, I think, is kind of intentional and explicit, and the other is maybe us just seeing where things line up perfectly that maybe wasn't intended.
Yeah. So, so you mentioned this earlier, portals were the end-of-level targets in Donkey Kong Land. Little swirling portals, which is a weird choice to make, considering the exits in Donkey Kong Country 1 were doors, caves, like doorways and caves. Like, basically just, I'm going to walk through that, the level's over. Donkey Kong Country 2, of course, had the end-of-level targets incorporated, like you get a prize if you drop down high enough, just that, like, a little bit of innovation. Donkey Kong Country 3 had flagpoles because they had just given up at that point. But, and Returns introduced, kind of a play on Donkey Kong Country 2's end-of-level targets. They introduced the barrels that rotated a prize, and so you had to like time your jump into it to get the prize you wanted. But Tropical Freeze then introduced secondary exits in certain levels, hidden exits that would actually take you to new end of level barrels, but the way to find them would be these swirling portals hidden in various parts of certain levels. And I maintain that this is an explicit reference to Donkey Kong Land's end-of-level targets. Or end-of-level portals, sorry. Yeah,
it seems pretty... I mean, I guess it's feasible to imagine that it wasn't intended, but I think it is, because it's just the same portal. It's just a swirling blue portal. It looks the same as the one on Donkey Kong Land.
It did retcon it a little bit, because it retconned it to be generated by Snowmad runes.
Right.
Magical Snowmad runes, you can see them forming the basis of the portal, like these floating stones with the glowing blue runes on it are forming the portal, which would be then a retcon of Donkey Kong Land that said the Snowmads had been through there and created these portals as quick exit points before, which I'm fine with. I'm all about that kind of level of retroactive world building.
Yeah, and the thing is, so it's like you said, this is the only thing really in the entire Donkey Kong franchise that functions like the way these portals function. The only time you ever see them is Tropical Freeze and Donkey Kong Land, and not only do they function the same, and it's the only other thing that functions that way, but also they look the same. So it's a reference. It was an inspiration that they pulled from it. They pulled the inspiration from it, and it's awesome because you don't go into a new Donkey Kong game expecting Donkey Kong Land references. And when you get them, you're just like, I'm a very simple man. My brain gets the happy juice when I see that. And I'm just like, nice.
You're a simple country farmer, and if there's one thing you like in this world, it's portals at the end of your video game levels.
Yeah, but only if they look like the ones from Donkey Kong Land. If you squint, and they look pretty much the same. So, but there is another thing we haven't talked about.
One more thing on the portals really quick. It should also be pointed out that Playtonic then, for Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair, decided that their secret exits would also be portals. So I think that, I think there is less inspiration from Tropical Freeze than a lot of people assume with Impossible Lair, but I think in that case, they were definitely inspired by Tropical Freeze, which was inspired by Donkey Kong Land. So in that sense, Donkey Kong Land had some inspiration in Ukulele in The Impossible Lair.
Yeah, fair dues. Then there is yet another instance of the now basically a trope of Donkey Kong Island having a floating landmass up off its coast, up in the air, which is in Tropical Freeze. I'm talking about Secret Seclusion, which is sort of the Lost World. It's only 3 levels. It's just kind of a couple bonus levels that you can unlock. But they're on a floating island up above Donkey Kong Island that vaguely, essentially lines up with where Fungi Forest was in Donkey Kong 64, which we already said that, it lines up with the fact that Donkey Kong Land kind of established the same concept. And so, we can just kind of squint and say, like, everybody's deciding that there's a floating landmass here above the island. They all are probably the same landmass.
Yeah, and actually the location corresponds. We see chimpanzee clouds over Monkey Mountains in Donkey Kong Land. We see the general location of where Monkey Mountains would be in Donkey Konga 2, and it all vaguely lines up with where this floating landmass would be in Donkey Kong 64, which lines up with where the floating landmass is on vis-a-vis the island itself in Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. It's all so stupid, Jeff, but it works. And so Secret Seclusion is the same landmass as Fungi Forest, as Chimpanzee Clouds. And Tropical Freeze also introduces the retcon that it is floating, again, through Snowmad magic. Because you see it's being held up by those glowing blue runes, those rune stones. So,
and you know what else works really well, too, is, and obviously at no point was this intentional. Let's make that clear. Because what I'm about to say is some stupid bullshit, but it works. But it works. Is the fact that Fungi Forest, the world in Donkey Kong 64, is the exact kind of temperate northern climate world that we see in Tropical Freeze, that is kind of Snowmad like home territory. What are the big NPCs that are in Fungi Forest? You have a hare and a snowy owl, or you have a hare and an owl. Hares.
No, the hare was on the snapping butt that was axed from Donkey Kong Land.
No, I mean a hare, as in a rabbit.
Oh. Why do people say hare? That's just call it a rabbit. What the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't know, man. I was thinking in like Snowmad like nomenclature. They're called hares. I know.
So
the point is,
I'm just getting up on my pedestal because I don't understand why people use terms like hare and tortoise when they could just say rabbit and turtle.
Well,
la-di-da, look at me. I have to come up with fancier words for things.
I don't disagree with you, Hyle, but the point that I want to make is that Fungi Forest's main residents are a rabbit and an owl, which are two of the main types of species that occupy the Snowmad army, rabbits and owls, along with walruses and penguins. But they're the kind of more temperate, not quite tundra animals, but like they're forest animals, northern forest animals. Fungi Forest is like a northern forest, and that's what the Snowmad's entire thing is. So Secret Seclusion, this kind of Snowmad Lost World, is on the same landmass with a sort of temperate forest with the same kind of species that inhabit the Snowmad army, rabbits and owls. So It all kind of lines up.
It lines up in a very stupid way, but it still lines up. By the way, another quick point on how the Snowmad retcon works on past games. So remember when I mentioned the temple, floating temple levels from Barrel Blast, the tracks? Also seen throughout those are glowing blue symbols. So it all lines up with how is this floating landmass floating to begin with? Glowing runes. Snowmad Viking magic. That's right. It all works. If you squint and get a little drunk. But I recommend that's how everyone lived their life.
Yeah.
And then I should, before the final one, I should also bring up that Super Smash Bros. For Nintendo 3DS had some exclusive trophies that you couldn't find on the Wii U version. Sometimes they shared trophies, right? But there were some characters that were only on the 3DS. One of which was Espresso the Ostrich. And in Espresso's character biography, it specifically mentions Donkey Kong Land and how he could actually jump on baddies in Donkey Kong Land. It actually says our fanon that Espresso's legs were stronger by that point, and he could actually they could actually withstand the bounce across a Kremlin's head.
My fanon has always been that he got poison-tipped soles on his shoes. And now he suddenly could defeat the enemies before they hurt him. Poison-tipped, Hyle.
The trophy description did not say that, though. Now, you could fan wank, if you want to keep that fanon, you could fan wank that in addition to his legs being stronger, he also had poison-tipped.
Well, that's the thing. It's like it's a chicken and an egg, because once you get poison-tipped shoes, now you're going to be jumping on stuff more often, and that's going to strengthen your legs. So it kind of one feeds the other, feeds itself, kind of thing. Poison-tipped shoes. Cool that, all right.
Yeah, no, I got it. You don't have to keep repeating it. It's cool that Espresso got a shout out, a Donkey Kong Land shout out, only on the portable edition of Super Smash Brothers. I don't know, kind of cool. Even though that's one of my least favorite versions of Smash Brothers, is Super Smash Brothers for Nintendo 3DS. Anyway, finally, that brings us to Super Mario Odyssey, and this one is a bit confusing to this day to lore, and the fans are very undecided when it comes to what this all means. But Donkey Kong Land took the concept of, hey, let's take the setting of the original arcade Donkey Kong and make it a world. Wouldn't that be cool? And then flash forward to the Nintendo Switch and the Odyssey team, and turns out they had the same idea without realizing, I guess, that Donkey Kong Land already got there first. Because we got New Donk City. New Donk City, of course. I don't need to explain what New Donk City is. Everybody knows New Donk City at this point. But New Donk City is the same concept. It is, hey, what if we have the setting of the original arcade Donkey Kong as a world? And load that up with references. And hey, we're gonna make Pauline the mayor of the city.
I don't think this contradicts Donkey Kong Land, and I think a lot of people do. People are like, well, whatever the newest big Nintendo thing says, that's the one that's canon, and that other stuff is not real. But you can reconcile all of them to be canon.
Yeah, I mean, it just requires a little bit of mental gymnastics. Like, I think it's harder to say that New Donk City is the same location as Big Ape City, because Big Ape City was already established to be right off the coast of Donkey Kong Island, and there's nothing in Odyssey that allows that or makes allowances for that. I'm not saying it's impossible, and I'm not saying that's not going to be where it's eventually going to settle as fanon/canon. You could also make the case that New Donk City, you have to put the emphasis on new. It's the new Donk City, and that it is a city inspired by Big Ape City in a new location. Immigrants, right? Or it's like we declare this city to be the new Donk City, and Pauline is the mayor, and she's pulling from her own experiences in her life. And she's more about celebrating the Kongs now than fearing them.
Well, the fact that like the whole theme of the city is like they do the New Donk Festival, celebrating like the events of the arcade game, and you have Pauline as the mayor and all this stuff. And people are like, well, if the arcade game didn't take place there, why would they celebrate it like that? And I'm like, have you been to any city? Every city has a little Italy. Every city has a Chinatown where it's clearly people who have come from the original location to the new location, and are celebrating their original customs and culture. And that's what New Donk City is for Big Ape City. It's and especially if you look at Big City from Donkey Kong 94 is what it was called. Big Ape City is like after Donkey Kong had, because there's like a 30-year gap between those games in the timeline. It seems to me Donkey Kong kind of fought with Mario over the fact that human beings were colonizing his peaceful jungle islands. And then, 30 years later, he basically has like made them all leave. And so all the humans left, and then the apes moved into the city, and now it's called Big Ape City because it was the city the humans built, that Mario built at the construction site. Now the apes move in as Big Ape City, and the humans went somewhere. They went and started another city called New Donk City, and they all just kept celebrating their history of like, we were built this city and they got kind of defeated by apes, but now we celebrate it because it's our backstory, it's our cultural, it's where we all come from. We're all immigrants of that city.
I keep thinking you're going to say we built the city on rock and roll, and I'm like, actually, they built this city on...
red girders.
Well, I was going to say cheap plastic bongo music, but yes, red girders. Yeah, and if you factor in Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battles Donkey Kong Adventure, which firmly established that Donkey Kong Island is a separate dimension from the Mushroom Kingdom, then, this is... We are in this dimension, this different plane of reality, but we are founding this city in honor of the old city from the old world, much in the same way that so many American cities start with the prefix new, or states.
I already know that I'm gonna get fucking hate mail about this. Like, some people are literally probably seething in anger at the argument I just laid out, where I said that New Donk City is not literally where Donkey Kong Arcade took place.
And here's the thing, and here's why it kind of frustrates me a little bit, because the Donkey Kong series had this idea first. We had it for more than 20 years before Odyssey got to it. And of course, Odyssey is a much more high-profile game, so that's what people are going to know. And so I'm kind of, sometimes I get a little annoyed because I'm like, well, we had it first. This was the way it was originally presented. And you don't get to supersede our own canon just because you're the big console Mario game.
And the point is, we're not trying to say that Odyssey isn't canon. What we're saying is that you have to reconcile both. And so many people are so quick to say, oh, this new thing said this. That old thing isn't canon anymore. It's not real. Right. It never happened. And I'm like, that's not how anything works. You're dumb. And I don't care. Eat my dick.
After he's done eating my asshole, we have to go in a progression, or we just do the train like in the Donkey Kong Land commercial. I'm game. Whatever, people. So long as we could all get on the same page, then we're good to go. Final thoughts, Jeff. Final thoughts on Donkey Kong Land and its legacy. And when we talk about its legacy and how it is a great shame that people today probably won't play it. All but the most diehards of the diehards will seek it out. And that brings up the question that I see bandied about on Twitter. As recently as last night, somebody tweeted and be like, hey, wouldn't it be great if Playtonic made a remastered Donkey Kong Land trilogy for Nintendo? And I'm like, everybody's so quick to jump on the remake bandwagon, right? Everybody wants a remade Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. Everybody wants remasters and remakes of these past games. And in my opinion, and maybe this is going to be contradictory from what I said, isn't it a shame that people aren't picking it up because it's an old Game Boy game? But I feel like having a Donkey Kong Land remade with modern graphics would kind of break the charm of the game a little bit. I feel like it gets away with so much because it was a Game Boy game from 1995. And I feel like to just have a modern version of that same game, but with super detailed graphics and everything, it would be cool. but I don't think it would mean as much as the original Donkey Kong Land. Just the same way as if you remade Super Mario Land, I would feel like it would lose some of that surreal charm. It would just be another Mario game at that point. Right?
Yeah, and at that point, if you're just making another game, make something new, and
that's my thing.
Improve on.
That's my thing.
But yeah,
I love the games of my youth. Obviously, I love them. They form the basis of my obsession and my career. But I would rather have new experiences set in those worlds with those characters versus just reheating the same thing. There's a reason why I never gravitate towards the Game Boy Advance remakes of Donkey Kong Country or Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color. And that's because, well, for me, those are Super Nintendo games. And it's great that they were available in that format with those changes and those new features. And I enjoyed them, and I appreciate them existing, but I'm never going to go replay that when I'm just going to replay the original, because those are Super Nintendo games. And if you're going to put in the development time and the people power towards a new towards a Donkey Kong game, I'd rather it be, like I said, a new Donkey Kong game, a new Donk game that will bring me new experiences. And in that light, I do wish we would have gotten more Donkey Kong Land style games. Meaning when handheld games were a thing, when there wasn't this blurred line between console and handheld that is the Switch, I wish we would have gotten more handheld games. The pay-on games were great, but I'm thinking more along the lines of when Donkey Kong Country Returns came out and was this huge success, then they had Monster Games develop Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Nintendo 3DS. And I question, especially based on how great their original levels were, attached to the cloud world, quote unquote, the new hidden world of Donkey Kong Country Returns. I question why they just didn't have them do an entire new game. Why it wasn't Donkey Kong Land Returns for the Nintendo 3DS. I feel like it's such a huge missed opportunity.
Yeah, I agree entirely. I think that, and you look at, some of the other franchises that are a bit healthier at the moment with, core dedicated development studio just pumping out sequel after sequel. Yeah. When we look at what the great games that we got, Donkey Kong Country Returns, and then 4 years later, Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, and each of them have respectively had a port. It just feels like it just kind of pales in comparison to something like Kirby, where they had a big return on the Wii, Kirby's Return to Dreamland, and that was immediately followed up with like two really solid, actually better like sequels on the 3DS before eventually getting a full original Switch game. And so they've just been pumping out like more of those core classic style Kirby platformers, and it's like, man, if Returns had been followed up by a really high profile 3DS game, and then Tropical Freeze was followed up by a high profile 3DS game, I'm not saying that every game has to be necessarily as large a AAA development effort as Tropical Freeze was, because if we're being honest, we may never see a 2D side-scrolling platformer that is to the pedigree of AAA development that Tropical Freeze had. It may never happen again. But, give us the smaller side games. Give us the 3DS games. That's what we were missing, I think, during that whole era, is just the kind of the side dish that really brings the meal together.
Right, and I feel like that lack of coordination has really what's been hurting Donkey Kong since the buyout. Obviously, the early buyout era was just all over the map. Bongo titles, and now the main console game is developed by this studio, and it has the bongos for the controls. And now we're gonna have these side games made by Payon that are peg swingers. But here's a racing game, and it was just like, and Rare's still making games for the Game Boy Advance, but the remakes of their games, and just all over the place, just seeing what would stick, and then. When we got to the retro era, we could have followed up Returns with a handheld game in that style made by a different studio, like we sort of got with Returns 3D. But it didn't need to be a port. It could have just been an original game. And then we would have kept the momentum going. And then, oh yeah, Returns was great. And now, oh, here's the handheld title that corresponds to it. Oh man, isn't this great? And now we're ready for the console game that gets announced. I feel like the fact that Donkey Kong Land did so much for me as a 11-year-old, 12-year-old, in like bridging the two country games and making me a lifelong fan. I wish we could have that for younger gamers today, so they could have been carried forward from Returns to Tropical Freeze and not have more than 3 years between the two with nothing but a remake of the same game. And that's where I think we need to have more influence from Donkey Kong Land today. Is we need to have those side games that are a little bit, less budget thrown at them, a little bit scaled back in ambition, but carry the torch just to the next one. And I'm hoping, if, the rumors are true and Nintendo is developing Donkey Kong, maybe internally, I don't know, but I'm hoping that is a consideration they make. Obviously, the landscape of hardware has changed because now it's the Switch and Nintendo is developing games for mobile, but I'm hoping it will be, taken into consideration that, hey, we can have this big console release and then we'll follow it up with something on the side, a side game. And then, yeah.
You know what Donkey Kong really needs? It's a Hollywood-style brand management comprehensive solution. Because what's happening in Hollywood right now, with anything that can remotely function in this system, is how do we take any big success and spin it into a multimedia universe of like the it's all inspired by the MCU. Everyone wants a piece of that pie, but you've got, if whatever universe we're talking about, it's got to have crossover potential. It's got to have universe, a wider universe. It's got to have TV series potential to put on the streaming services or whatever, the spin-offs and the side series and all this stuff. And they're looking at everything. They're like, we need a shepherd to kind of, make sure that the universe is all gelling together, and it's a comprehensive plan to attack you in a multimedia fashion and just penetrate every aspect of your media consumption and say, oh, you like this, you're going to buy this 100 times in 100 different flavors. And I'm not saying that I want them to run Donkey Kong into the ground. What I'm saying is I want them to say, there's a difference between saying, let's go out and make a good movie, and then saying, oh, let's go out and see how we can take this and make it into a sustainable, never-ending universe of sequel potential. And that's what I want Donkey Kong to be. I want them to say, we are going to invest in the brand so heavily that it's not just we put in the effort to make a game, and then once it's done, we're back where we started, and we might have to put in effort to find a new team to spin up a new game 5 years down the road. Instead, you wanna go and say, no, let's put in an effort to establish how this brand is going to maintain itself going forward with sequels and side games, so it's always kind of it never dead. And I'm not saying I want annual sequels like when we had on the Super Nintendo, 2 games a year. I am saying that maybe 2 games a decade is not good either. So, yeah, that's a tangent. But I think I want more Donkey Kong Land-sized experiences in this franchise.
So what you're saying is you want a Kevin Feige, like in charge of Donkey Kong and saying, this is the game plan. This is what we're doing. This is our 5-year plan for Donkey Kong. This is how we're going to keep the brand alive.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's no reason it shouldn't. Because when you look at any other really major platforming franchise of today, they have a sustained, constant flow of sequels, and Donkey Kong is the one that is, at least in the Nintendo sphere of fans, Kirby stuff, Mario stuff, like Sonic games, they're all kind of like, they're well managed to I'm not saying well managed. Sonic is poorly managed, but they are being managed to make sure that this is not just one game project. This is a franchise that we have to keep afloat as like a brand. So that's what I'd like.
And you want that for Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
When pigs have the wings.
This has been a File 2 production.
Little.
Que rico.